In this video, we will go picks 1 through 32, linking players to teams, and in many cases, ones you have not seen before. Hayden, over the last 48 hours, plenty of cuts, resignings, trade requests. With all that in mind, I think the people deserve a new mock draft.
Yeah, always new mock drafts. Also, in the last 48 hours, I went through and I tried to get the right range for all of these players too. And I actually ranked like the top 50-ish players and where I think they're going to go in the draft. So I think the big thing out of the combine is kind of a little bit better of a picture. Is this guy a fifth overall player? Is he the 15th overall player? Or on the inverse, is this a 35th overall player that's now into round one?
Pre-free agency, post combine. So we'll be highlighting, spotlighting a whole bunch of team needs that should be filled in the next few weeks. But we don't want you to wait because obviously coming from Indianapolis, all these GMs and head coaches get in the podium. We can speculate what moves they're going to make, what, you know, they've identified as massive roster holes, plus the scuttlebutt, the news, the buzz that came from the convention center. We're going to cover it all today. Where do you want to go? Odds or evens?
Give me the odds, and we got a lot of stuff to figure out right off the top.
Yes, we do. Because we're going to include trades in this one, we will go alternating picks here. Number one, Tennessee Titans. Question for you to start this off with. Are we at the point where either the Titans take quarterback Cam Ward at number one, or they trade the pick to someone who does take Cam Ward at number one?
I actually think is exactly spot on here. So I just think that he's too good of a prospect. I think the gap between him and everybody else at quarterback is too rich. The top three teams are desperate for quarterbacks, and some have to win this season. Other have a little bit of a longer leash. And I think the other fascinating part about the first overall pick is, to me, there's two other like blue chip ish caliber players at premium positions, with Travis Hunter playing two different premium positions, and then Abdul Carter. So I don't think, like, even if the Jets or the Saints are trying to move up to one, I'm not sure if I'm the Tennessee GM, which I am today, if I want to
Hmm.
move that far, because all of a sudden you get into this tier of players where I can't differentiate the fourth overall player between the 19th overall player. So to me, it's like the first three teams are the ones that I'm going to be taking phone calls with, because if I'm the Titans, if I do pass on Cam Ward, I want future draft capital, and I still want to land one of these two blue chip players.
I think it's even more notable because if Cam Ward's on the board at number two, I would find it highly difficult for the Cleveland Browns to pass
Yep.
up on him. I
Yep.
highly doubt that they would. So a team's either going to have to make this move or take him at number one. I don't know if we started this process, a few weeks ago, months ago, even for all these NFL teams, and they were at the point where it's like, oh yeah, Cam Ward, number one overall, like we have seen with quarterback prospects. It might be different than the ones who started the season, but by November, December, January, you kind of have, oh yeah, he's going to be the number one overall pick. That doesn't mean in this period of time. I just go back, and this is a long time ago, but when Carson Wentz and Jared Goff were coming out, those guys were the top quarterbacks on the board, yet the teams that were drafting number one and number two were not teams that were most likely going to take quarterbacks. Yet, because of the need at the position and then trades that then happened, they went up to number one and number two overall on final draft day. I think something very similar can happen here. And most of those trade conversations, the genesis of them is Indianapolis at the NFL Combine.
I think the other notable part, because free agency is next week, the Titans had Cam Ward, Carter, Hunter, Shador Sanders. They're getting these guys official visits done like right as we're recording this episode, which is typically not how it typically goes. And I think that's notable just because there's a little bit of leverage at stake with the Giants, whether they're able to answer their quarterback via free agency, or if they have no other option but to go to the
Right.
draft.
Yeah, we are going to get answers, at least one or two of these dominoes, of which teams are most likely to trade up to number one or even take a quarterback inside the top 10 next week or the week following that. But we are early to this. So, which side are you leaning the most to right now? Are you leaning the Tennessee Titans take Cam Ward at number one, or another one of these teams, even the Cleveland Browns at number
Yep.
two, making that small jump up to the top spot?
That was gonna be the thing I was gonna call you, because I want to be able to choose between Carter and Hunter if I'm the
Okay.
Tennessee Titans. And I think that the Browns would still offer up their first overall pick next season. They said that they have a roster that's able to compete. They just need a
Wow.
quarterback.
So you think the Browns, to move one singular spot, are willing to give up their 2026 first round pick?
Yeah, I think the historics just over the first overall pick, it's either multiple second round picks or it's the next year's first rounder. It's a price for quarterbacks, and I think the Browns are probably looking at this is if we do have Cam Ward, we're going to be picking in the teens, in the 20s, perhaps, assuming that they can keep Miles Garrett. But for me, if I'm the Titans, the first team I'm calling is the
Is the
Browns,
Browns,
not
right?
the Giants. And I think that the Browns are very likely to go quarterback because they don't have money to spend on a veteran like the Giants do. Like the Giants have a better chance of answering their free agent, their quarterback situation via free agency. Where the Browns, they have like maybe Kirk Cousins on the Russell Wilson contract, but that's not a long term answer. And I do think that that staff is going to be more inclined to go find a quarterback in the draft. And the Schefter reporting and other people have come out and said it. Where to me, the first thing I'm doing if I'm the Titans GM, Browns, what's up? What's the draft capital?
I think a first round in the 2026 NFL draft for just moving up one spot is too rich. Now, I've also seen the exact opposite where, I think some people are undercutting or underselling what this move might take for the New York Giants, where it's like, oh, 2 third round picks and they'll move up 2 spots. It's going to be more than that. But I would be more willing to give up the 33rd overall pick in this year's draft rather than the 2026 first round selection.
The Titans said they're just looking for top 100 picks in general, and they said it picks. So, yeah, what do you think the compensation is? Do you think second overall and 33rd overall will get it done?
I mean, the Browns' number of selections they have in this class, I believe they're at 12.
Tons.
They're at
Yes.
12 overall selections, 2, 33, 67, 94, all that stuff. So,
Give me
sure, you're getting the
94.
number one.
Give me 94.
Well, why not 33? That's what I was saying.
Yeah, 33 and 94. And then
And
call it a
94.
wash. Yeah.
All right.
Let's go there.
So that is that is the final pick. Well, one of the final picks in the third round. The 33rd overall pick and the number 2 overall pick just simply move up one spot. So the details of the trade: pick 2, pick 33, and pick 94 for pick 1. And Hayden, we're also going to send pick 168 back in return as well.
That's news to me, but if it gets the podcast moving, then it gets the podcast moving.
All right. So this is going to rework some things. I will say Browns beat writer Zach Jackson, who works for The Athletic, said he believes the order of operations for the Browns right now is Cam Ward number 1, Abdul Carter number 2, and then trade out. So that's all before Travis Hunter is in the fold here.
Yeah, I think that makes sense for what the Browns need. They need some edge depth, especially if they aren't guaranteeing that Miles Garrett's going to be a part of the program for the next couple seasons.
All right. So you'll take Cam Ward at number 1 as the Cleveland Browns. And then all my notes that I had for the Browns are in the wash as we bring it here to the Tennessee Titans now at pick number 2. We have seen teams have differing opinions on where Travis Hunter and his ball skills are best utilized, either at cornerback or at wide receiver. I would say that the Tennessee Titans have a need in both spots. However, in this spot, I believe they'll go with Abdul Carter, the edge rusher out of Penn State.
Yeah, Harold Landry, somebody that might be released. He's like, you can go fetch a trade, but I think he's going to end up getting released. And I think that's another signal that Abdul Carter is going to be the Titans. If they don't go with Cam Ward, it would be Abdul Carter over Travis Hunter.
Yeah, and when you have a new regime and look, a new head coach last offseason and then obviously new decision makers here, I think in a way you try to figure out what your identity is going to be on your roster. And if that's the case here, your defensive line can be Devondre Sweat, Jeffrey Simmons, and Abdul Carter. And that's the identity of your defense. And you build it out from there. And that's a pretty dang good foundation to build off of.
Yep, and then plus some draft capital here. And if you're the GM, you have a long time to figure this thing out because Abdul Carter is one of the safe picks in the draft.
You're back to the clock here with the Giants at number 3.
So I've watched Shedeur Sanders. I do not think that he's in this range. Just based off of his film, I just don't see it. It seems like that's the growing consensus around this. The Giants, I'm assuming they're getting some veteran, whether that's Aaron Rodgers or that's Russell Wilson. But I do think there's kind of this like second tier of quarterbacks that makes sense in the second round. Your Jackson Darts, your Tyler Suggs, your Jalen Milrose. So we'll get to that later on. But to me, there's a significant gap between Travis Hunter and everybody else. I can see them using Travis Hunter on either side of the football here. They, like the Titans, don't have depth at wide receiver. They don't have depth at corner. We'll figure that thing out later. But to me, this is the top 3 picks. It's Hunter, it's Carter, and it's Cam Ward, and I'd be shocked if it's anybody else.
I was so certain that the NFL was going to view Travis Hunter as just a corner. Not just, but that would be his primary spot. And man, just the more you go along and you think, okay, his ball skills are going to be utilized, for 60 snaps per game
Yep.
at wide receiver versus, oh, they might not be targeted except out of 6 times an entire game at corner. And sure, that does impact everything else. It does make me think that instead of, 90-10 defense versus offense that I thought it might be closer to 60-40 defense to offense. And I do wonder what the Giants are going to be on this occasion.
When I'm updating my big board, I have officially flipped Travis Hunter to a wide receiver, and just for that reason, like his best traits are his ball skills and his movement skills. Like, put them at wide receiver. You get to see those more often.
So there's been a few reports, and you talked about Shador Sanders, and we'll talk about him a bit later on, with the quarterbacks at the top and the teams at the top, specifically how maybe his combine fared differently than Cam Ward's. Todd McShay went on his podcast and said, quote, two teams that were drafting inside of the top 10 left their 15-minute meetings with Shador Sanders, saying he did not care too much what they or the organization felt of him. Dane Brugler said, quote, the feedback was very mixed. It's not that he's a good guy or a bad guy. He's not a for everyone guy. And then to be totally transparent on all of this, Mary Kay Cabot, who's a beat writer for the Cleveland Browns, which, by the way, it seems like there's been the most positive buzz linking Shador Sanders with the Cleveland Browns, said that they have come away quite impressed in their interviews. And she had an incredible mic drop line at the end that said, in fact, it only confirmed that one man's brash is another man's treasure, which I thought was excellent beat reporter writing.
Yeah, it really was. I don't think anything about his personality is going to matter. I think it's just going to be based off the film, and that's what it's going to be. You and I both have been part of teams. You see how much personality there is in these organizations. They're used to it. Um, he's confident. That's okay. He doesn't have to be for everybody. You don't have to get beers with him on the weekends. And Shador Sanders doesn't want to get beers with you either. So he probably doesn't like your personality. So I think it all doesn't matter. If he has good tape, he'll go high. If teams don't think he has good tape, then he won't go high. And I don't think that Shador Sanders in the Cleveland weather would be a good match.
It goes back to what you just said. If he drops, it's most likely because the tape did not stack up to an early round pick, or I should say an early top of the first round pick. All right, number 4 with the New England Patriots. This is something that you have linked a long time ago that I think more and more and more people are now starting to link it after the awesome combine that he had. I'm going to go with Missouri offensive tackle Armand Membu. I think many people have been wondering, is Banks or Will Campbell, are these guys the top tackles in the draft? Whereas Armand Membu was right there in front of everyone's eyes as the top guy at the position. And you can start him off at right tackle if you want to. If you want to make the shift over to left tackle, you can do that where he hasn't played that often at Missouri. But Membu is, just a sensational athlete, can really get out in space in the running game. He's a pillar piece to build where the offensive line, all these other teams are scrambling to fill those spots ahead of free agency. The Patriots are going to do that as well. But I think Membu is, again, a foundational asset in that regard.
I first was introduced to his tape by watching all the edge rushers first, and I would go throw on the Missouri games, and nobody would ever do anything about it. He's allowed a 2.7% pressure rate to the top 50 edge rushers in this class, and then he absolutely lit it up at the combine, like 96 percentile athleticism. It's hard to find tackles in the league. Left tackle, right tackle, that gap is for sure been closed. I think there's a chance that he can even be left tackle if they thought that was the long-term answer there. But yeah, his terms of tape and athleticism and his age, he's really young, very experienced. Like this to me, it's like, is it 4? Is it 7? Or is it 10? And it's not going beyond that.
If you like this type of content, be sure to hit that subscribe button. This is what we give you. And next week with free agency starting on Monday, we'll have instant reaction videos with nearly every single top player that gets signed by the team. We'll be having a video here on the channel for you within the hour. So hit that subscribe button, hit thumbs up, and join us on this off-season journey. That'd be such a fun right side of their offensive line too, with Onwenu and Membu. Cool group. All right, Jacksonville Jaguars, pick 5.
Yeah, this is the tier where nobody's really like standing out to me. There was at one point where consensus had Mason Graham as that. I think like that's going to start changing just because he was much smaller than he was listed, ducked the combine in general. And then Will Campbell is the other name that's kind of been linked here, and that's the direction I plan on going here. We just
Okay.
listened to their new GM just talk about do you want to build up the interior, and the comp right now for Will Campbell is Brandon Sheriff, who was a tackle, moved inside the guard. That's who he would literally be replacing in this long term. Uh, if he decides to be a left tackle and they get over the Walker Little experience or something like that, there's always the option to go to left tackle. But he's too good of a mover. Just in general, his athleticism is off the charts. He was a very good tackle as well. So I do think that the fit remains here. Now, at the same time, if other teams are like, well, I'm not taking a guard this high, I do think there's a chance he can fall even to like the 49ers at 11. So his range has gotten a little bit wider because of the combine and the measurement. But I do think the upside case is still there. And I would personally be okay drafting an elite level guard if I have my franchise quarterback in place.
Yeah, I mean, look at how the guards are being paid in free agency right now. You have Chris Lindstrom, you have Robert Hunt. Heck, even centers are being paid highly, close to $20 million per year at the moment with Creed Humphrey. It's on my radar always when a general manager, especially for the first time when he gets the podium, emphasizes over and over again a specific position group that also fills in with a need. James Gladstone, new Jaguars GM, quote, addressing the interior of the offensive line, setting the dish for the quarterback can be really helpful for their success. And it wasn't just in his 15 minutes. He also joined our friends Greg Rosenthal and Jordan Rodriguez on their podcast, saying right here, second time, James Gladstone mentioned interior offensive line as a notable position to upgrade for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I was going to pitch you a move here with the Chicago Bears at number 10 to move up ahead of the Las Vegas Raiders for a certain skill position talent. But if you are just, we're going to run this in, we think that Will Campbell's the number one interior offensive lineman, and no matter what, we're going to take him, then I'll hold off.
Yeah, I think the interesting part is the guard depth at the top. I mean, we just lost Tyler Booker because of his combine performance stuff. There's like not like another guard that you kind of fall back to. So I'm gonna keep my pick, and I'm gonna make Trevor
Okay.
Lawrence happy.
There's some top talents, which I believe the NFL probably perceives Will Campbell as a top talent along the interior offensive line. Like Gladstone didn't get up there and said, you know, two top wide receivers is what an offense needs, or corners, changes the scope of a defense. He said offensive line. And so, Skronsky just went 11. How much does Zach Martin, Quentin Nelson change their offensive lines? Considerably. And while this is earlier than that, we're also trying to chase the blue chippers in this draft class and trying to make some, maybe that there aren't many out there.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, we will take Will Campbell. And I think that it's where it ends up, whether at number 5 or a little bit of a drop down. Pick 6, Las Vegas Raiders. Speaking of offensive linemen, they just signed Alex Kappa, who was cut by the Cincinnati Bengals. They just re-signed Max Crosby to a new deal, a 3-year extension, I believe. And so where do we go from here? We've talked about it when Chip Kelly was hired, that man, oh man, they are top 3, top 5 in rush attempts per game every single year, no matter if his offense was 27th in points scored or top 5 in points scored. So I really want to lean Ashton Genty here. What do you think?
Yeah, this is the one that I keep going back to as well. I think that they would maximize his touches because there would be a ton of them, and his film is just ridiculous. Like his contact balance is as good as I can remember. He's not as good of an athlete, well-rounded wise as like Saquon Barkley, but just the like contact balance, the physicality, all that stuff is absurd. And I do think in a class when we're looking for blue chippers, I do think the positional value stuff is going to get a little bit pushed to the side, especially with the Saquon Barkley contract, uh, improving just the actual worth of the position as a whole. So I do think that like this is the kind of range for Ashton Genty.
Yeah. And I don't think Mason Graham is necessarily a fit here when you consider the Christian Wilkins contract last year and are already investing in Max Crosby, who plays on the edge. And then the Ashton Genty conversation kind of dovetails into the quarterback conversation here. Like, what if in free agency they go and get Sam Darnold, make that contract, or another player that can get them by through a year or two, whether that be Russell Wilson or other names. And then, just having Ashton Genty can be the focal point of your offense immediately. It gives you an identity there. This was also the player that I was going to try to pitch the Chicago Bears moving up from pick number 10 to jump the Las Vegas Raiders at number 6, because we have seen them in the last 2 days, really solidify two of their three interior offensive line spots. And to me, that leads them to not having to draft that for need and instead of going for the best back in Ben Johnson's offense.
Just for the Raiders side of this, how long did you consider Shador Sanders, another quarterback
Right.
prospect? Where are you at with the Raiders evaluation on the rookies?
It's very different if they sign Sam Darnold versus if they sign freaking Russell Wilson, you
Right.
know? Like that is we're locking in Sam Darnold for 2+ years, or this is Russ. He's a vet. Name what other longtime guy that is on little guaranteed money who might start for 4 games to 14 games, and then we move on. Uh,
Mhm.
so yeah, I mean, there's also this conversation that I hear from a bunch of people that, oh, Shador is maybe interviews didn't come across great because he already knows where he's going. I wouldn't buy into that necessarily, but at the same time, uh, every team is different with their quarterback evaluations. No doubt in my mind, Tom Brady's going to have a very major say in who the quarterback is going to be, but I just do not see it right now as a fit at number 6. And I think that we will um, maybe see that name creep around as we go along in this draft.
People always in my mentions are like, Tom Brady knows Shador. There's no way Shador is falling past the Raiders. Like, look, you can be a mentor to somebody and not pick them 6th overall. Like, just because they take phone calls with each other does not mean that he's gonna guarantee pick him 6th overall. So yeah, I'm with you on this.
All right. The running back goes number 6. That's number 7 here. The New York Jets to you.
So I would love Armand Membu here. They don't have a right tackle. This can be an interesting pick, but I do feel confident he's going to go really high. I'm going to throw at edge Jalen Walker, and he's a little bit interesting because he can
Wow.
also play linebacker. The comp for him, like in terms of just measurables, is Hassan Reddick, who is not going to be with the Jets next year. He kind of slides right into that. They also have a linebacker that's going to test free agency. We'll see if they return either one of those guys. But Jalen Walker, he's a little bit risky to me because he's such an outlier in terms of his height and his arm length and stuff, but he's so dynamic. And if he doesn't work out full time at edge, he can also be one of these guys that play a little bit of both. I just think that his tenacity, and I'm going to guess that this coaching staff is going to think about winning in the trenches and potentially on the defensive side of the ball. I know they already have some talent over there, but I do think that Jalen Walker, depending on how free agency works out, this is the type of range that he's going to kind of go into. It's like him, Shamar Stewart. There's a couple edge rushers that we're going to get to, but he kind of fits this like linebacker edge hybrid type that I can see working in this defense.
Fascinating. I mean, he's a freak. We know it. I think there is some indecision on exactly what position he will start off as. But no matter what, to me, when you're talking about getting off the field, it's him as a pass rusher. And we'll see that in a whole bunch of second and third down stuff. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think Aaron Glenn and company really had a player like this. They obviously love to rush for there and have a bunch of man coverage in the back half and press you on that side. So I do worry about that sometimes with certain players being used effectively by certain defensive coordinators. At the same time, Aaron Glenn will not be calling plays here. And Jalen Walker, also, when you get to the podium, thought that was exceptional by him.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a really fun player. Anywhere inside the top 8 makes a ton of sense for me, even if he doesn't have a locked in position, which, by the way, I've listed in previous mock drafts. Some of your favorite players didn't have locked in positions coming into the NFL.
Yep. One of them just got paid today. Zach Bond was drafted kind of as his tweener, kicks out to backer, and all of a sudden it's going to be paid like one of the top.
Yeah, and even Micah Parsons had a whole bunch of linebacker snaps in his first few years. They're like, actually, you're going to be a full-time edge.
That
You're
worked.
going to be a full-time edge. All right, we'll take Jalen Walker here at pick 7 to the Jets. That brings us to the Carolina Panthers at pick 8. I mean, this is best case scenario for this organization. It is so clear that they either have to get a game changer on one side of the ball, either stay on the field on offense or a get off the field player on defense. And on some level, you have that. You have T-Mac, Tet McMillan at wide receiver, or Mason Graham, an interior guy out of Michigan here. We don't have athletic testing for either of these players. They have obvious needs on both. I would want to make the case that it should be T-Mac to continue to elevate the offense more and more and more. And I think we'll see a whole bunch of moves in free agency on the defensive side of the ball and make that a focus. But at the same time, how we're doing it right now, how we're looking at this roster, Mason Graham is a player that you can pair with Derek Brown. Heck, even Ashawn Robinson, who was a much better pass rusher than I was expecting last year, plus Jadeveon Clowney, and they're going to make another move, I'm sure, at a pass rushing spot. I'm going to take Mason Graham here at pick number 8.
Yeah, when I was going through the ranges, I had him ultimately as between 4th and 11th overall. I think there's a couple teams in this range. I think just because he's smaller does not mean he's going to fall out of the top 10. But I do think this is probably more appropriate. The Ted McMillan stuff would be awesome for Carolina, and I also think there's some other edge rushers that we haven't brought up that I think are going to be in this range. And uh, to me, he's still the guy that I have ranked the highest of this group. So I think that his slide's only going to go so far.
Yeah, the T Mac stuff, there's some quiet buzz that he might not be the first wide receiver selected here, and that's not, including Travis Hunter in this conversation, right? I don't buy into that. I still think that T Mac is most likely going to be the first one off the board, but if that buzz is already starting here, it can either disappear or it can grow as we go along. So Mason Graham instantly becomes a contributor for the Panthers. All right, pick 9, New Orleans Saints.
So this is a team where I do think that they would be a potential fit for Shedeur Sanders. When I was going through one of my own mock drafts, I did mention it as a fit. I just think that the Shamar Stewart NFL Combine blow up has really moved the needle. Now,
Wow.
he gets like some comps to Myles Garrett and stuff. I do not see that on tape. Not at all. He needs some development, but the Saints are a team that are looking for edge rushers. Chase Young is a free agent. This team historically has been in the trenches. He hits their size thresholds. He's a bigger defensive end as well. Can definitely help stop the run, set the edge. And he's just a 99th percentile athlete coming from the SEC. Like, these guys just don't fall. So I initially had him kind of like in the 20-ish range, but the testing at a smaller weight, and I think that's going to be the key distinction, is I believe he was playing at like 280, 285, and I didn't love the finishability with him, but he dropped like 15, 20 pounds at the combine, and then his explosiveness like really started to shine. And hopefully that's like the difference between him being like a pressure guy versus like an actual sack artist. And I don't think that the Saints have like a better high upside play available to them.
I like a lot of what you're saying. I mean, Chase Young, when he played this past year, about 63% of the snaps, I thought was a super effective player for them. And we know how much Cam Jordan has impacted this franchise. But man, oh man, it's an interesting group when you're looking at the areas that they can improve. They're going to have to run it back in a lot of situations. It's obviously a new coaching staff, but as you said, the same thresholds and the same decision makers are going to be making those choices behind the scenes in Jeff Ireland and company. And as you pointed out, a lot of people are going to be focusing in on like single digit sacks for multiple years at Texas A&M. Carter Donick on Twitter, some positives, underlying metrics here for Shamar Stewart. In the entire edge class, he was 6th in hurries per rush, 3rd in hurries per true pass set, 13th in pressures per true pass set, 18th in true pass set PRP. So that's the combination of everything. When I watched him, he would get within an arm length of a quarterback often, and then he would either stumble, fall,
Yep.
the quarterback would scramble because no one else would be pushing the pocket from the opposite end. And so he was able to escape the pocket. So again, a lot of the sacks that you see, it's not the primary person that's getting credit for it. It can be the secondary one that the quarterback runs into or is the cleanup stop. If he had someone helping him out or a cleanup person on the opposite side, they would have gotten more production because I thought the disruption was there quite frequently.
Yeah, I would say he was like a pocket pusher. I didn't see him like win initially as often as like the true elites, but that's why he's not in consideration for first overall right now. Like, you have first overall traits, but he's going closer to the top 10.
Pick 10, Chicago Bears. Man, this is, I think, a little bit of a pickle they are in here because I was dead set on making that move with you for Ashton Genty earlier on. Look, interior offensive line, guard, center guard is an absolute mess. And it's been so clear that Ben Johnson's number one priority to Ryan Poles since he took the job was, hey, we got to fix this immediately. So you take on Jonah Jackson's contract and sending a late round pick for him. That, because he has a lot of history with Ben Johnson, becomes one of your starters, either at center or guard. And then Joe Thuney, 32-year-old, is a leader. Again, you're paying him a lot of money. So then where do they go from here, Hayden? I would love some of your help here because if we're looking at this, I feel like left tackle and still one interior spot are areas that they can still clean up because we know the left tackle and Braxton Jones is a late rounder, has had some up and downs and finished the season injured. And they definitely need a highlight center. Now, is there a highlight center in this class at number 10? No. At the same time, once you get those, other than running back, I think you are set along the offensive side of the ball, and then it all goes to the defense.
Yeah, I think that edge rusher could be like the quiet backup plan for them. And there's a million edge rushers available. So that's kind of like the direction I would be leaning towards is one of these edge guys.
The other question is there a team that would want to move up for Tet McMillan, T-Mac, at this point, and be willing to make that deal? I mean, I'm looking at this. San Francisco, no. Dallas, maybe
Yeah.
as their second wide receiver. How about we make a deal here between the Cowboys and the Chicago Bears?
That's called buying us some time. I like it.
All right, we're going to do pick 12 and pick 76 in return for pick 10 and pick 149. That's how we're going to do this. So the Bears get to move up 70 spots from day 3 to day 2 in return for moving back just 2 spots in the first round.
Yeah, I think that Ted McMillan as a Dallas Cowboy could not make more sense here. I mean, just CeeDee Lamb in the slot and then Big Tet as like an X. It's great.
And look, Dallas, I think, is going to be searching for, because look, they're losing Brandon Cooks. They have 0 running backs on the roster right now. I mean, absolutely 0. And if I go and look through what their beat writers have been saying over on The Athletic, this is from John Machada. Their running back is one of Dallas's biggest needs. It doesn't sound like they view it as their top priority at number 12 overall. It's sounding more likely they'll go in a different direction at that spot. Wide receiver, defensive line, cornerback is more likely at number 12. And you have all those options here. But we're going to go with T-Mac here because, again, Cowboys and where they're at, I know they just freed up $36 million in cap space. But I don't think that's going to be able to get them Devontae Adams, per se. So we're going to go with T-Mac here in the draft.
Yeah, let's do it. I would love it.
NFL Draft with Josh and Hayden is sponsored by BetterHelp. So every year when I get to go to the Combine, I get together with friends from the industry. Ones I speak to every single day, just online. And then others, that I have actual conversations with. But these discussions, these conversations in Indianapolis are a bit different because, sure, we talk about football and who might go where and what. But more importantly, we talk about ourselves. We talk about our lives, our trials, our tribulations, all that stuff. Things I don't really get to discuss on a daily basis. And because of that, that night, the next day, the next week, I think back, I reflect, and I realize how great it was to discuss those things with someone else, to have a sounding board. And, therapy can be a source of support for any of you in any area of your life. It's time to shift the focus from doing it all by yourself to being able to discuss those things with another person. BetterHelp is fully online. It makes therapy affordable and convenient. Seeing over 5 million people worldwide, you have access to a diverse network of more than 30,000 credentialed therapists with a wide range of specialists. So build your support system with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/ffpod today to get 20% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/FFpod. San Francisco, pick 11 for you.
So they have a guard need. They have a defensive tackle need as well to me. And they need a long-term replacement for Trent Williams. There's not an obvious answer for any of them. I'm looking at Tyler Warren at the top of this. They obviously don't need that right now. Corner is also a need. It's not necessarily something that they typically go after, but Barron and Will Johnson, I think, would be good scheme fits for them. But let's go on the offensive line. They're about to pay Brock Purdy a bunch of money. How about Kelvin Banks? He played a left tackle at Texas. I do think that some people project him as a guard. Now he's fairly tall there. He can start at guard this year for them and then be the long-term answer for Trent Williams after maybe it's this next season. And then you kick him back to left tackle. I think that he has the nice movement skills that you're looking for in this styled offense as well. And I think if you're just looking at the Chiefs and something that they've been struggling with is if you're picking really late in the draft every year, it's hard to find a left tackle. You're not finding left tackles in free agency. And if you don't plan for one early enough, you can get yourself into some trouble. And I think that if they're going to be paying Brock Purdy a bunch of money, it's better to keep him upright. And I think that Kelvin Banks can be a nice guard for them in the interim.
All right, that brings us back to the Chicago Bears after I tried to buy myself some time. This is a fascinating group right now. James Pierce, buzz not great. Very linear athlete, it looked like at the NFL Combine. Mike Green didn't do a single thing, and he has been very honest about what has kicked him out of Virginia back in the day. And then you have Donovan Ezeraku, who an interesting prospect as well. Also tested like a fantastic athlete in the 81st percentile, but is just under 6'3" and 248 pounds. Hayden, once again, I'm at a loss for words here at number 12 with the Chicago Bears, because this somewhat puts me back in the scenario of where the Detroit Lions formerly moved out of their slot in round 1 and then moved back to pick number 12 and drafted Jahmyr Gibbs. But I don't know if there is a running back that is worthy of pick number 12 here.
No, there definitely isn't, in my opinion. You also remember they just traded picks to get Tooney too, so they could be a trade down team. There's another edge rusher, Michael Williams, who doesn't look like any of these. These three guys are undersized speed rushers. Michael Williams is more of the variety of what the Bears have been kind of going after recently. We don't have enough athletic testing on him to like guarantee that he's going to go in this range, but this guy had some moments. Like he was sacking CJ Stroud against Paris Campbell as like an 18-year-old in the college football playoff. Early declare from Georgia has got the size that you're looking for. So he hasn't like won the combine, or he hasn't really been in like the media's eyes necessarily, but this is like the type of profile that does go a little bit higher in the draft. And I do think he would be like a 1-for-1 replacement for this defense based off the early offseason reports.
All right, let's go there. We'll go with Michael Williams to the Chicago Bears at number 12. That brings us to the Miami Dolphins at 13.
So there's a couple guys I test like absolute freaks in range. For the Miami Dolphins, we know that they need interior guys. Booker was always someone that's commonly mocked here. He's just not athletic enough for this offense. I think that he's going to fall a little bit. There's not another good guard prospect in this range, so we have to save that for another day here. The defense, you have linebacker Jahad Campbell, which I think would be great here. Kenneth Grant, we haven't got testing on him, but he's a freaks list guy at defensive tackle. He would be replacing some key veterans. And then you also have the safety, Nick Amanawari, who would be replacing some guys there. I'm going to go with Kenneth Grant, the defensive tackle here.
This hurts me.
This guy is going at his pro day, going to make you guys feel nervous to even be alive that this guy's walking around the planet. He is, to me, somebody that's guaranteed going to be a good stopping the run. And I think that there's a chance he turns into one of the better pass rushers from like more the nose tackle spot, the A gap. He's a freak. His best plays were very exciting. Early declare, monster athlete, tons of experience. I think that he's somebody that doesn't get a lot of top 15 love yet, but I do think that there's a chance that at the end of the day, premier position, freakazoid, that he goes a little bit earlier than people are expecting.
Okay. Can I make a pitch for South Carolina's safety, Nick Amanawari? Because if we are talking about premier positions, safety might not be that for every single defense, but for Anthony Weavers, which comes from the tree of Mike McDonald, it absolutely is. Talking about a Derwin James comparison, which a lot of people made that the Kyle Hamilton comparison out of school. They do not have a player like this, a guy that can be used in a whole bunch of different facets, be like the foundational piece of your defense other than the pass rushers up front. I understand that, they still haven't replaced Christian Wilkins and all of this, but if Kenneth Grant wasn't there, I think this type of versatile safety would stand out to me.
Yeah, I think it makes total sense. That same defense though does have some defensive tackles that can move the pocket around as well. But yeah, this guy is going to go
took one
early.
last year in Seattle. Yeah, and has Nnamdi up in Baltimore and all these guys.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think it's going to come down to is Kenneth Grant a 98th percentile athlete that I'm expecting, or is he an 85th percentile athlete and all of a sudden he looks like more of a regular nose tackle and not one of these true like high upside picks? I think we'll find out at Michigan's pro day, but he was like number 3 on Bruce Feldman's freaks list. And I think one day it's going to pay off for me.
All right, 14, Indianapolis Colts. There's a number of positions I can go here. Chris Ballard said, quote, "We got to do some work on the back end." To me, for Lou Anarumo's defense, that's at corner. That's at safety. I can go with Eman Mori right here as well.
Athletic testing.
Yeah, and we have seen safeties, albeit in kind of a different mold, be a cornerstone piece for Lou Anarumo's defense. Just look at Jesse Bates and how he transformed that unit. Now, that was more of like a single high safety, tracking all around and just screwing up everything in the back half. Now, at corner, I think many people would expect, Will Johnson in this spot if they were to go in that position. I think Jody Barron is another name to keep in mind here. Those are the three names I'm circulating in my brain. What about you?
Yeah, just looking at the traits and what this GM has typically gone.
Who he wants to be a different person, he says this offseason.
Well, I mean, sometimes you are who you are.
I
And
agree.
the safety is kind of the one that I was looking at. They have Kenny Moore in the nickel position, and that's kind of where Barron would be playing, where you have Nick playing a slightly different position. Yeah, not necessarily like Bates to me. Like the instincts are a work in progress, but he makes up with those instincts by being the best athlete on the field. So item is a late round one guy with confirmation that he's like a true alien out there. He's probably going to go top 20.
And I'm even looking at Seattle, for example, who with Mike McDonald's defense, this is another piece that you can add to that. And I don't know if he makes it past 18 now. So like 13, 14, 18 to me. Maybe we have the combine glaze over our eyes at this moment, but I'm buying it. Okay, we're going to take Nick Emenworry here with the Indianapolis Colts at number 14. That brings us to the Atlanta Falcons at number 15.
So this one's pretty easy to me. You got to get better on the front seven on defense. That's at edge rusher, defensive tackle, and at linebacker. There's a couple guys standing out to me. Campbell, the Alabama linebacker, off-ball guy. That would be an awesome fit to me. They can bring him on blitzes, which I do think really moves the needle there. Could you sort with the edge rushers? I believe that James Pierce is available still. Yeah. So this one's going to be interesting. James Pierce, to me, just looking at his numbers and the tape that I've seen in the athletic testing, is a top 10 player to me. I think I have him like 8th overall on my initial big board right now. There are some character issues that I can't speak to, but there's a chance that if he does drop, that's the reason why. This would be kind of playing the middle ground with him. There's a couple teams that need edge rushers in this range. I ultimately think that's where he's going to go. Let's go with James Pierce. We're talking about like a 20% pressure rate guy. He is extremely fast off the edge. I think that his drills show that he can bend a little bit more than people are giving him credit for. I cannot speak to the hoodie. I cannot speak to that damn vertical.
Forgetting your other clothing at your hotel on
right.
The one day that you need to run in front of all 32 teams.
Yeah, they couldn't get his GPS numbers from the drills because
Correct.
the GPS chip was in the shirt. And what's funny about that is, or not necessarily funny, but everyone's saying he has like character issues, and then like you're the guy that forgets your shirt at the hotel. I mean, come on, you don't have somebody that can.
Right.
Where's
and
your
then
agent?
He goes out there and runs a 4.47 with a 1.56 10 yard split.
I mean, his agent. Could you not go to the hotel room?
It perfectly encapsulates what the NFL Combine is, by the way, just perfectly.
I loved it. Like him doing the 4.47, the hoodie was like perfect Combine stuff. So
true James Jones stuff.
Yes, he's too good to fall. Now, some teams are gonna have to evaluate the risk, but man, his best film to me was really freaky stuff.
I think we're going to be an edge run here because at the 16th pick with the Arizona Cardinals, they look in the exact same direction. I think Jonathan Gannon might take a page from one of his, I guess we can call him former bosses in Howie Roseman and say, okay, I've tried to build up what this team is over the last couple of years. What are some areas that I haven't done enough in? And that is certainly the edge rushing group. I mean, they took a guy at the end of round one last year who only played a handful of snaps towards the end of the season and isn't even a primary pass rusher for a team. So you have a few here in Mike Green, in Ezeraku, and in Nick Scorton. They all do some types of different things. I'm going to go with Donovan Ezeraku.
I really like this guy. He's one of the guys where if you have 10 different things that you're looking for, where it's personality, it's your pressure rate, it's your athleticism, it's your production, the whole thing. Right. He's checking every single box. Now, is he completely wowing you? Not necessarily, but I do think that he is one of the safest first round picks. He will go round one. And I do think that this is like the top of his range, but we probably should have brought this up when we were thinking about the Bears trading down, because the Falcons and the Cardinals and some other teams in this range are all fighting for the same positions, maybe there is a team that says, I really love this edge rusher and I'm not willing to take the last of them. And then the other guy that was in consideration here, Mike Green, he's got multiple off the field issues, like very serious stuff. All allegations, don't know the truth of any of it, but teams will eventually be able to figure that stuff out. But Mike Green, Pierce, and Ezeraku, they like stylistically play the same kind of position.
What we do know about Ezeraku is that he tested as an 81st percentile athlete. He's 6'2.5", 250 pounds, a 4.19 shuttle, which is fantastic, a 6.94 three cone, which I believe was one of the best, if not the best, of the group, and then some really solid jumps on top of it. Don't have a 40, don't have a 10, don't care at this moment. Ezeraku is going to be the pick here today. Arizona Cardinals at number 16. All right, that brings us to 17 for you and the Cincinnati Bengals.
So we got to be looking at the defense here, and you can go at any of the levels here. Some names I'm just kind of circulating. Derek Harmon, defensive tackle, just a classic 3 technique, tested very well. He's at the top of my list. And then I think that Jihad Campbell, the linebacker out of Alabama,
Oh, yeah.
I think he's going to go in this range. I don't see him falling. His athleticism is too good. He was the number 1 edge recruit out of high school. They had so many edge rushers at Alabama, as they typically do, that they just said, go play off ball. And to me, he was fantastic. I saw him going sideline to sideline for his like inexperience to the position. I thought his instincts were also very good. He's got the size profile.
Heck of a blitzer
run.
too.
Yeah, I'm real like spying, blitzing, all that type of stuff. You can get him on the line of scrimmage in some scenarios too, and bring some pressure. So I'm gonna go Jihad Campbell.
Okay.
He's one of these guys that just checks all the boxes. Where I think in the teens is where he belongs. And if somebody a little bit earlier than this wanted to pull the trigger, I would totally get it. He seems like a Pro Bowl, All Pro type of off ball linebacker.
I think it's difficult to pin where linebackers off ball are going to go in the draft. It wouldn't shock me at all if a team inside the top 12 falls in love with Jihad Campbell and wants to take him there. And in fact, the next team in the Seattle Seahawks certainly rotated starters and signed them and then cut them and all that type of stuff. He would definitely be on the radar at 18 for the Seattle Seahawks. And I would say for, the Bengals, one slight advantage they might have is their new defense coordinator, Al Golden, played against, coached against, recruited against a whole bunch of these guys. Will have definitely some inside intel coming as the defensive coordinator from Notre Dame. And I'm sure he watched a bunch of Jihad Campbell last year. That brings us to pick number 18, the Seattle Seahawks. Before we get into their selection, Hayden, we learned today DK Metcalf requested a trade. I don't think we're talking first round pick compensation for DK here. What do you think his value and maybe some team links that might be out there for him?
Yeah, this is one where, like, from the Seahawks side, the only reason why it makes sense would just be they're too far apart contractually. Like, they need DK Metcalf to run this offense, in my opinion. Like, the Kubiak stuff works best. We saw it with while everybody was healthy in New Orleans last year. Deep play action shots. Like, JSN can kind of do that, but to me, like, that's where DK Metcalf would shine. So, yeah, I think it would just be based off of the long term commitments that they want to make there. To me, it's like 3rd, 4th round picks. I think he's not viewed as this like truly elite number 1 wide receiver. I think that he's best as a 2. He can kind of cosplay as a 1, but he's like more of like a deep threat 1, not like go to 3rd and 5 type of wide receiver. So yeah, I think there's not enough wide receiver free agents to kind of go around. So I think that there's a chance that somebody throws a 3rd round pick at him, but I'm not sure if like the draft capital is going to be like completely blowing the Seahawks away here.
Yeah, and you'll have to give him a new contract on top of it all. I think DK's a really fun player. He can force defenses to change and alter how they cover your offense. But that doesn't mean he's like a number 1 wide receiver across the league. He doesn't do everything that to me like a true number 1 does. At the same time, there are games it looks like he just totally takes over, And what my brain instantly jumped to is the New England Patriots have a ton of cap space. We saw it on an abysmal team last year. Drake May made Kayshon Boutte look like he had legit downfield sideline chops. Just imagine Drake May throwing these sideline vertical go balls to DK Metcalf instead. Yep. And that can already alter and change the formula of what you're doing offensively and defensively. There are certainly some other teams out there. We had heard buzz, and it was reported by, I think, local Packers beat writers that maybe Green Bay is involved. At the same time, he does bring something somewhat different that Green Bay has. Although I understand he's coming off a significant injury, but like on paper, they're on the same timeline and of spectrum of what DK Metcalf and like Christian Watson bring to an NFL team.
Yeah, I think that that would be kind of a little bit redundant to what they have. Now, obviously, Metcalf would be their top guy there, and I do like him running downfield with Jordan Love. But the Patriots one does make sense because the Patriots have a ton of money. So whatever's the contract that DK Metcalf
Not a
is
big
looking
deal.
for, not a big deal. They need to pay somebody. Like, there's nobody in free agency to actually pay. He's 27 years old right now, so he would be a long term number one, number two, depending on what the Patriots can find in the draft the next couple of years, and at least provides like some pop to the offense there. So the Patriots would make more sense to me than the Packers. And it's not that he would be a total answer for the position, but him versus Ayuk, I think like that's kind of like the conversation. And we'll see if he actually gets moved. I would be curious what the hell the Seahawks are going to do at wide receiver if
Right.
they do
Because,
move, and they just
you know,
released Tyler Lockett.
but that was expected. He kind of took like the
Yeah,
number 3 or even number 4 receiving job, and based on his contract, it was time to let him go. But at the same
for sure.
time, these are kind of the two pillars of your passing game over the last 5-ish years, and now you've moved on from that. I do think that fits in line with how Mike McDonald addressed his play caller and offensive coordinator position, where it was philosophical differences while he moved off of Ryan Grubb. And then all that we hear with Clint Kubiak coming in is that this wide zone scheme is going to define who their offense is now and how they're going to attack defenses. Now, I think in order to effectively utilize this wide zone system, things are going to have to change. They were already one of the worst teams in the guard center guard combo. And if we go back to a quote just less than a year ago, their GM, John Schneider, said, talking about offensive guys get overdrafted at that position, and in my opinion, they get overpaid. Then at the NFL Combine, 1 year later, says, "quote We will overpay and overdraft that position. We've been guilty of it, and we'll probably be guilty of it in the future as well. It's a position that everyone is looking for." I think they were kind of just late to the party here with these offensive guards. Like they should have tried to keep Damian Lewis, who then signed this contract with the Carolina Panthers. They had them in their building. Now we get to pick here 18, and based on the lack of players in free agency, because all of them are getting re-signed or traded ahead of time, I'm not sure where we can go here. What I keep hearing from everyone out there when they're mentioned this offensive line class is, oh, this North Dakota State offensive lineman, Gray Zabel, is like a locked-in starter from day one, even though he went to an FCS program.
Yeah, people project him as center. He had a good day or a good week at the combine. He's played a little bit of everywhere. I think that guard or
Right.
center, they need all of it. This is probably like the top of his range, but I have heard Daniel Jeremiah is like this guy's going round one. So we'll see. This is just kind of part of the draft where depending on if you view these guys as tackles or guards, like the middle part of round one, there's like not a clear answer, especially if Booker, who was supposed to go in this range, isn't going to be a fit for everybody. Like wide zone with Booker, I'm not sure about that fit there. Donovan Jackson, the other Ohio State guy, this would be like towards like the earlier side for him, and his best tape was actually at left tackle, not at guard. So it's kind of like a
And they don't
weird
need that.
part of
They've
the
got
range.
Charles Cross.
Right. Yeah. It's just a weird range to need a guard. I wonder if it's just like we're finding our guard on day two and let's hope and pray rather than like guarantee the spot.
Well, John Schneider has never been afraid to maybe make a pick earlier than others are expecting him to. He works by his own rules when it comes to ranking these prospects. So we're going to give him Gray Zabel from North Dakota
All
State.
right.
I understand he's close to 6 feet tall. Only did a couple things at the combine. Those things were outstanding. We just saw last year, though, someone in Graham Barton who played left tackle at Duke, go to center, transform that offensive line, make that interior elevated up, along with having great bookends. Hopefully, you can recreate that here with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Charles Cross, then Zabel at center, and then at right tackle,
Yep.
hopefully, a healthy Abe Lucas.
I thought he moved really well. I was a little bit concerned about just his like density and stuff, but that's less of an issue in this offense.
Pick 19. Speaking of them, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Right. So I think we're going to get some news eventually that some Tampa Bay Buccaneer corners might get released here. There's also a huge edge slash linebacker problem. There's not an off ball linebacker that I like anymore. So the available edges, I believe Mike Green is available. Um, but I don't think that Barron's going to fall all that far. Same thing with Will Johnson. Like this is the kind of range that they're supposed to go to. Man, this one's tough. Could you go to the edge just to make sure I'm not forgetting a guy?
It's just Mike Green
Okay.
and Nick Scorton.
Let's go with Mike Green. They
Oh,
just need some
okay.
pop. They just need some pop in terms of just like some speed because they can obviously from the interior they've checked all that. They just need somebody from the wide spot get out there and create some pressure. Mike Green really lit it up at Marshall. His pressure rate's like the top of the class. It's just that he was doing it against lackluster tackles, and that's what makes me a little bit nervous. We'll get some official athletic testing from him, but just eye test wise, he definitely could turn the corner, get upfield, and I do think that's exactly kind of what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers need. I'm guessing that they're hoping for like James Pierce to fall instead, but I do think like this is the kind of the range that Mike Green's supposed to go to.
Pick 20, Denver Broncos. Nick Kosmider from The Athletic, quote, the Broncos know they need to upgrade their running back position and tight end spots, but they aren't limiting their options with the number 20 pick. I got the feeling in Indianapolis that Denver would love to add a young, dynamic player to an already talented defensive front. Inside linebacker and safety are other needs on defense. Hayden, we're going to do a whole bunch of these mock drafts in the future. I highly doubt another one is going to have both Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland available at pick number 20. We could see Tyler Warren go much earlier. And you and I have discussed personally that we think Loveland could easily be selected and should be based on just his evaluation and how much bigger than I was expecting and how rare he is a mover at his size, a top 15 pick. But I'm going to go Tyler Warren here for the Denver Broncos. Again, Loveland is another great selection. I'm sure in the future we'll link those. I understand everyone is making this out to be the Joker spot. But we need to do it based on how this draft fell.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely use Tyler Warren in the Joker spot. There's so many ways that Penn State was using him all over the field. So yeah, this would be like as far as Loveland, like Broncos and Chargers, like they're not falling further than this.
Right. And one more, we saw Tyler Warren all the time use a whole bunch of wildcat and quarterback stuff at the tight end position. I'm sure Sean Payton is watching that and being like, man, do I just have a younger version of Taysom Hill here on our hands? Possibly. I can just pull all those plays out of my back pocket and recreate them with Tyler Warren.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. This also kind of the range where if Shedeur Sanders is falling, how we have in this mock draft, the Steelers is going to be one of the teams that people kind of circle as like, all right, how far is he going to fall? Where if you're the Giants and you didn't draft Cam Ward earlier, like what we just did in this, like are the Giants trading into the top 20 to go with Shedeur Sanders? Or are there other teams early day 2 getting back into the first round? I think this kind of late teens range is where those phone calls are really going to start to pick up because the Steelers are one of these teams where they don't have a quarterback. Are they a team for Shedeur Sanders?
Okay, well, that brings us to them. Pick 21, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Let's do it. Let's go with Shedeur Sanders on this one. Man, the hard part with this is they don't have a clear-cut answer at quarterback, obviously.
Nope.
I'm not sure if the Arthur Smith offense is necessarily great for Shedeur Sanders, but I'm also not sure if the Steelers can be all that picky. I do believe there is a chance that Jackson Dart, Shuck, Milrow, these guys get into this conversation of the quarterback 2 range. Right now, Dart is the one that's often kind of put in that kind of category. But let's just kind of stick with what consensus has typically been, and let's go with Shedeur Sanders in this spot. And I just don't think the Steelers can be all that picky. And if Shedeur Sanders does fall this far, I do think that there's only so many teams picking the 20s that even need a quarterback. So if it doesn't start happening here, then you start getting into the really scary range.
Yeah, and we'll find out more about the Steelers playing at quarterback next week. A lot of buzz that they want to bring back Justin Fields over Russell Wilson, but Justin Fields' name has also been mentioned with other teams. Like there's no way they can escape free agency with no one, because then that definitely sets them up. They won't have a quarterback on the roster,
But even if it's Fields, Russ, pick your poison.
Totally.
It's going to be for 1 year guaranteed.
Totally.
That's it. So that would just be like, okay, let's get Shedeur in the building. Let's get those guys some starts early on, and then eventually Shedeur Sanders gets in there. I did just want to throw.
I just mean if it's even less than the Fields and Russ category, then that tips their hand even more of what's going to happen during draft weekend.
100%. I'm going to save this take when I can like fully flush this out. But I do think this tier of quarterback, the Shuck, Dart, Milrow tier, it has my interest. If these guys are going to go into early day 2, like I can see the path for some of these teams kind of going that range.
Well, producer Weaves, why don't you throw this video from James Palmer, who has mentioned that he's been told that Jackson Dart could be a top 16 selection in the NFL draft.
Speaking to a number of teams after his Senior Bowl performance and the Combine, Ole Miss quarterback Jackson Dart has worked his way into the first round, and two teams telling me potentially the first half of the first round.
Top 16 is on my radar there. I know that's just top half of the first round, but like what we were just talking about, if you look at pick 16, that's the Cardinals, the Falcons, the Colts. Like, I'm not sure, other than the Colts, how many of these teams have actually discussed the quarterback position. So I do wonder if someone is willing to trade in that top half of the first round.
Mike Sando, he's so connected. He was doing a little mock draft, and he had Jackson Dart to the Saints at 9th overall. So I have a first round grade. Now I'm one of the only analysts that like does my big boards based off of like where I would draft these guys, not like this like theoretical like this is how good the player is. I don't even understand what that means. I would draft Jackson Dart in the first round because it's like the position that matters. And like, nice, you hit on the safety too. That's awesome for you. But I'm trying to win some football games and shoot for some upside. So I usually rank the quarterbacks way higher than everybody else. But I am circling some of these guys as like real options to roll the dice with.
Yeah, you called out Sando. I think he had Cam Ward number 1 overall, then Shador number 2, and then that would lend itself to Jackson Dart at number 9 with 3 quarterbacks in the top 10, which I don't think anyone's talking about other than him. All right, Los Angeles Chargers, pick number 22, the great Daniel Popper over at The Athletic. The Chargers have a hole at center. GM Joe Ortiz, though, revealed a potential creative solution in Indianapolis, moving former 2022 first-round pick Zion Johnson from guard to center. Now Popper is saying he would be surprised if the Chargers look at center before day 3 at all. Highly doubt they spend a first-round pick on an offensive lineman here. Man, I'm just looking at this, and Will Johnson is sitting there. There's a lot of connections we can make from the defensive coordinator to the head coach to Will Johnson. We've also seen when coaches go to the league, it's not like they just take who they coached and recruited at the college level if they think someone's better. And Jahdae Barron is up there at the exact same time. And then there's just this massive hole at the running back spot too. And this is that range where I think we can start getting into the Marion Hamptons of the like as well. Any thoughts of this group?
The other one, tight end, Colson Loveland's on the board, right?
Oh, yeah.
Michigan, too. So what's funny, Kenneth Grant's already off the board.
This is like a sweet spot right now at pick number 22, I feel like, of the draft. Like, while we were kind of fighting with ourselves around pick 12 to pick 18, I feel like if you're at pick 22, there's going to be a whole bunch of talents for these guys to pick from.
Yeah, I think people are going to be like, there's no way Barron's falling. There's no way Warren's falling. There's no way Will Johnson's. And like, you can say that about 20 different guys, 25 different guys here. But what's interesting with the Chargers is there's 3 Michigan guys that fit team needs that I think are going to go in this range. So like Michigan round 1 for the Chargers. I think Will Johnson would be a great fit. Obviously, Colson Loveland would be what we're hoping for in fantasy land. So I would go with those positions over a running back. And I think you and I see Colson Loveland very similarly. Like a guy that tall should not be as agile and fluid in his routes. But these corners are going to go really high too.
Really high too. I am going to give them Jahdae Barron out of Texas.
That would be spicy.
I mean,
imagine being the team that drafts Will Johnson. You're like, shit, Harbaugh just passed on him and I'm going to draft him.
I'm doing it for the chaos. I'm doing it for the post round 1 reactions that everyone's discussing. Because if this is on the board, everyone's expecting it to go one way and then we were zagging the other. By the way, Hayden and I are already pre-reading some of your comments down below and getting ahead of them. That no way X, Y, and Z can happen. Guess what? It did in this one. All right, we're going to go with Barron here, the corner out of Texas. That brings you to the Green Bay Packers at pick number 23.
I'm going to go with Will Johnson. I think Jair's not long for this team. I think that Will Johnson, he scares me a little bit because of the long speed, but his agility, his instincts, his length, they are round 1 caliber. His peak is round 1 caliber. Now he has an injury and some people are reporting some character stuff. So I do think his range is a little bit wider than we kind of thought going into at least for sure this year of football. But I don't see Will Johnson and Barron falling further than these next couple teams just because the need is so obvious.
All right. That brings us to the Minnesota Vikings at pick 24. Again, Alec Lewis of The Athletic. The 2 most interesting targets are guard Will Freeze and defensive tackle Milton Williams in free agency for the Minnesota Vikings. Secure one of those players, and the Vikings will immediately strengthen the trenches, which is a primary offseason focus. Simply put, expect a flurry of activity. And it's not just new players. They'd have to have a flurry of activity to re-sign some of their old ones. Byron Murphy at corner. Stephon Gilmore. Do you bring him back? He had a solid season, but he's aging. Shaq Griffin played 50+% of the snaps last year. Cam Bynum at safety. What are you doing with Harrison Smith? And we didn't even touch on Sam Darnold, which basically is that conversation. Do we want to spend that money or bring back / improve the trenches and these other spots? I do wonder this weekend if that's when they get some back channel conversations with his agents of how far will the $30 to $35 million go in a single or short-term Sam Darnold contract go in free agency. And if it doesn't go that far, to me, he's much more likely to return to this team. And again, I would expect us maybe not get word of that, but those are the conversations being had post-combine to the start of the league calendar.
And because he wasn't franchise tagged, the Vikings now have the opportunity to spread his cap charges over multiple seasons here. So it does increase the likelihood that they're able to re-sign Sam Darnold to a multi-year extension and sign some of these guys. And teams are viewing salary cap not as just this year, because a lot of these contracts are backloaded, they add void years and all that type of stuff. So it is possible to sign back everybody now that the franchise tag is not all going to come in on 1 year. So it's going to be fascinating. There's just not that many free agents to pay. Like most of the top free agents were on the Vikings last year. So we'll see if they can re-sign them before they get to that point.
Yeah. And I'm even having a tough selection here because someone like Matthew Golden with another pick or another team in this spot probably would be a odds-on favorite to be the selection. Certainly not for what the Vikings put out there on offense. We've already ransacked the interior offensive line department, just like it's going to happen in free agency. I'm kind of lost here. We have seen Kwesi in the past use a first-round pick at safety. That went terrible and horrible. Yeah. And I'm not sure if they go in that one, but Malachi Starks' name is screaming at me right now at pick number 24 as either the immediate or heir apparent to Harrison Smith.
He's a smart player, lots of experience. He's just not a crazy athlete, which makes me nervous going like safety.
No, but at the same time, if you use like the GPS tracking, he was by far and away the
agility,
fastest when you look at all the other defensive backs in the field when he was doing it.
One name I have linked with the Vikings is Derek Harmon, the defensive tackle. That's like a spot that they don't like have completely locked up. This guy to me is checking a bunch of boxes. Just a pass rushing 3 technique. There was a quote, I think it was from Flores, talking about, if we can just win with 4, we don't have to blitz at 55% of the time. Now I'll believe that when he starts,
Brian Flores would be like, bet.
Yeah, he was like, well, let's not take a defensive tackle or an edge rusher because I kind of like this blitzing stuff. But Derek Harmon to me is like pressure rate, size, athleticism, production. He's crushing the interviews. Like to me, premium is like, why isn't this guy a top 20-ish pick to me? So I think this is like a underrated team need for the Minnesota Vikings. And I really did enjoy his comp. He's not as agile as Chris Jones, but he plays in that kind of style where you're seeing a lot of arms coming at you and really long.
Okay. So in this scenario, as Alec Lewis pointed out, how about they do sign Will Freeze in free agency, but miss out on Milton Williams, albeit he's somewhat of a different frame than what Derek Harmon brings to the table. And that's who they select here in the first.
I like it. It's gonna be hard to get Milton Williams on your football team if you don't have a ton of money because the Cardinals are going to be coming for you.
Yeah, and they run it back with Cam Bynum. They run it back with Byron Murphy and a few of these other defensive backs. 25 Houston Texans. Can I make a pitch to you here,
please?
Nick Caley, Coach Rob Gronkowski in New England. This team searching for a pass catcher to pair with Nico Collins, especially over the middle of the field. Can we please get Nico Collins, CJ Stroud, and Colson Loveland on the same team?
I love that. Emeka Egbuka is also on my radar here, but Colson Loveland is a better football player to me than Egbuka is. Obviously, they have a connection with Stroud, but Colson Loveland on this team would be
special,
phenomenal. I mean, phenomenal. This guy's best routes as like a legit wide receiver.
I mean,
it's crazy.
This might be my favorite link in the entire first round, especially where you saw Nick Caley coach last year as part of the LA Rams staff. And the way that they use slot players to also be pseudo tight ends is like exactly where this hybrid position of how offenses are utilizing tight ends and slot receivers. Colson Loveland is not the next evolution of that, but I think the next in line. He's not Brock Bowers, but man, the way he moves at 6'5", 240, while also dealing with an injury and hasn't been able to like truly prepare for all this offseason stuff.
Yep.
It's crazy stuff that he can do.
Yeah, he's bigger than people give him credit for, and also people just kind of shit on his run blocking. He was playing through an AC joint injury. We learned that at the combine as well, so that partially explains some of the way with that. He's massive. There's no way this guy's not going to be a functional run blocker on top of it. But I don't even care if you can't run block. Who cares? You're picking up first downs through the air. That's what I'm signing up for.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams at 26 are trying to battle up and maybe move up ahead of the Texans for this type of player. They were in on Brock Bowers. There were plenty of rumors for that. Again, I'm not calling Loveland, but you can utilize them in very, very, very similar ways. Look, we've seen the Texans be hyper aggressive when trading up for certain individual targets, like they were with Will Anderson, giving up the future first round pick. The Rams, we know, get very aggressive when they see someone. Because of that, again, these picks at 25 and 26, I wouldn't be surprised if one of these guys move up for Colson Loveland if he's already not a top 15 selection.
Yeah, he's a special player.
LA Rams, 26, Jordan Rodriguez, quote, on the topic of their incoming class, I expect it to be offense heavy with a focus on receivers, right tackle, and tight end, even though Sean McVay said veterans Rob Havenstein and Tyler Higbee will return in 2025. I think the tight ends now are kind of in this grouping for a bit later on. We like some of those names, but there's a huge teardrop, and I wouldn't begrudge anyone for ranking Warren and Loveland, whichever direction they want to go. Offensive tackle, this now gets fascinating because this is an area, as we saw a whole bunch of movement last year in the first round. That was a lot for wide receivers, where someone like the Kansas City Chiefs, what is their question at pick number or answer at pick number 31 for their left tackle spot? And you have, I think, actually some legit tackle prospects here. Now, some of them have had questions at those spots because they were previously guards. Some of them are also dealing with ACLs or injuries on top of it. But, Josh Simmons, Josh Connerly, Ursery from Minnesota, I think surprised some people at the combine too. And you also have Donovan Jackson here.
So Simmons played right tackle at San Diego State, then upgraded his school and then played left tackle, which is interesting. He's got a torn patella tendon with scary injury. We got some positive news that makes me think that he's going round one, but it's definitely a risk reward type of bet. They're looking for the right tackle, so that'd be kind of interesting to move him over.
Which he has played there. He did play there 799 snaps back in 2022.
Yeah, for down out with the Aztecs. So it just kind of depends on how much risk they're willing to take. The wide receivers, though, Matthew Golden would be, a fantastic opposite, just like a field stretcher for Puka. To me, that's where things can kind of get interesting.
Let's go Matthew Golden.
We're talking 4.3 speed. He's got great ball tracking. He's got great tempo in his routes. Apparently a great kid on top of that. He plays nothing like Puka Nacua, which I think is kind of the point here.
Yes. 4.29 and can catch. That's a pretty good combo to have in your wide receiver room. Pick 27, Baltimore Ravens.
Okay, so this is one of the teams where just Josh Simmons, the tackle that we're just talking about, makes some sense. It sounds like they're going to bring back Ronnie Stanley, Starks.
Can I make the pitch for Malachi Starks so Kyle Hamilton can just do what he wants to do and be utilized as that closer line of scrimmage player and have Starks more in the back half here?
Yeah, that's how I like Starks. There was some reps of him man coverage in the slot. They weren't my favorite reps. They kind of make me nervous with the athletic testing. I like him more in the back half of things where his instincts are more in play. So I think this is the range where Starks is going to fall in. I can see him going in round 2, but they've been searching for someone on the back half of the defense here. And I do think that's where Starks is probably best, more cover 4, cover 2 stuff than I don't like him as on the line of scrimmage as much.
Can't you just hear the post NFL draft stuff where it's Eric DeCosta just got the best player once again that fell in their laps, just like he has every single year before. The stories write themselves. Okay, Malachi Starks there. But if they do lose Ronnie Stanley in free agency, once again, we could talk about the tackle group for them.
Oh, yeah.
Detroit Lions, pick 28, Colton Pouncey at the Athletic. At this point in time, if I were to throw a few names in the first round for the Lions, Derek Harmon, Donovan Ezeraku, Jahad Campbell, all gone for us. But then this gets interesting. Tyler Booker, guard. Donovan Jackson, offensive lineman. Ohio State's Tyleik Williams. We already talked about Gray Zabel and Nick Scorton as well. Plus ECU corner Siobhan Revel. Look, to me, it's on my radar that Colton is considering making and keeping a strength strong along the offensive line. Some of those guys have been aging along their group. We know that they lost Jonah Jackson last year, replaced him with Kevin Zeitler. A lot of those tackles he was mentioning still on the board. Your thoughts?
Donovan Jackson is going to be the guard of the group. So Connerly, I don't think is a great pick for them. Donovan Jackson, I do think makes some sense. He is a left guard that can play left tackle, super experienced. And I think that would make a lot of sense for them. The other name that you mentioned, there was another, was it defensive
An edge,
tackle?
Nick Scorton.
Yeah, I don't see Scorton as a round one player personally. I did make the Donovan Ezaraku fit, Derek Harmon, all those names make sense. But in terms of like interior offensive linemen, I think it would be Donovan Jackson over these names. The corner that you brought up, he's coming off of injury, so that would kind of surprise me. And the other you talked about Tyleik, he's like a run stuffer, which I think is more round 2 than round 1. So I think of the guys I think is going to go round 1, it would be Donovan Jackson.
All right, let's go there for the Detroit Lions. Again, Colton says offensive line route makes a ton of sense. They could stand to get younger at the position. Christian Mahogany's rise is a good start. Adding someone like Booker, Zabel, or Jackson would also make a ton of sense. So
Booker was also a great spot. He's not going to be for everybody because he's so immobile, but he's so dense and strong, and I can see that being a fit.
And look, I know people previously got on Brad Holmes before he, kind of built a juggernaut over his last few years, and he doesn't care about positional value and all this type of stuff. He has cared about athletes. We've seen that in basically like all of his recent round 1 selections. If you go from Penei Sewell to Aiden Hutchinson to Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell on top of it. So these are a lot of athletes that he's been selecting. So something to keep in mind because Tyler Booker did not test like an athlete, but that's an interior spot. Washington Commanders, pick 29.
So some of the names I had, Burden's on my list, Booker on my list, Maxwell Hairston, we haven't talked about him, the corner, ran like the wind. I really liked his tape as well. It just, obviously they just traded for Marshawn Lattimore, so it would be more depth where they want to keep Mike Sanders still probably on the inside. Is Harrison on the inside? So that's kind of the debate. We're a fantasy show, so let's go with Luther Burden here.
Again, is this not too much of an overlap with Deebo Samuel?
I guess it just kind of depends if you're going to extend Deebo Samuel. Do you think is this contract year Deebo Samuel? We'll see how it goes, or do you think they're going to try to get an extension with Deebo here?
No, I think this is contract year Deebo Samuel, and you see how it goes. But I mean, to me, they're kind of in a spot where, yes, our offensive line totally outperformed what it was last year. We did lose Sam Cosmi at the end of the season. We know that Brandon Coleman played really well at left tackle, but Josh Simmons is screaming at you as a right tackle potentially here.
Okay, let's pivot off of that. Let's go Booker. Let's end his fall.
Okay.
I still think he's going to go round 1. There's even after the combine that believe that he's still loved in the draft and still it's going to go inside the top 20. Apparently he's an awesome leader and those type of things. So getting some help for Jaden Daniels would make some sense. I still think he probably still goes round 1, but we are talking about I think the RAS, they were saying that only 2 or 3 players with an RAS score as bad as Booker have gone round 1 in the last 5, 6, 7 drafts. So if he does fall, it shouldn't be that surprising.
Buffalo Bills at number 30, Joe Buscaglia. The Bills would likely look at an edge rusher, wide receiver, defensive tackle, or cornerback with a strong emphasis on the first 2. My question is Luther Burden did all of his best work out of the slot where, he took 261 of his 306 passing snaps this past season. Emeka Egbuka also does his best work out of the slot. And then the Buffalo Bills just extended Khalil Shakir, who is their slot wide receiver. So
No.
I don't know if any of this fits for a wide receiver in the back half. It's basically for them, T-Mac, Matthew Golden, and then where do you go at wide receiver?
Well, I think like Jaden Higgins is somebody that I think has a chance to go this range. I don't see that
Right.
very often, but he's like more outside
Totally.
size jump ball, like kind of what they were trying to get with out of Amari Cooper. I just don't see Jaden Higgins mocked in round one very often, and I don't see him like in the consensus ranking, so it might be a little bit premature, even though we liked his combine. But the other wide receivers, it's just too how many. They're gonna have nobody on the outside. They're gonna have like 8 slot receivers with Kincaid out there. It's too
I
much.
agree. I'm going to pivot on over to the cornerback spot for them because they previously tried with a starting corner on the outside in the first round in Kyrie Elam, and that has been absolutely dreadful. They've rotated at a bunch of these spots with, Rasul Douglas, and we know Christian Benford's one of their better players. But when one of those guys go down or they just don't have someone consistently on the opposite side, this is the area where we haven't seen many corners go in the first round here in comparative to other years. I'm going to give them, just a casual sub 4-3 corner in Maxwell Hairston.
Yeah, I actually really liked what he offered. You think like that level of speed means a lot to man coverage snaps? Not really. Like he was more off ball and then fire down, and he had some great ball production out there. Field Yates was like the only person I saw like had like round one love, but I think that's probably where we're headed here. Lots of zone coverage stuff, which is good for the Bills there. Inside outside versatility, which they like as well. But he can really, really run out there. That's for sure.
The Bills got eliminated from the playoffs. We discussed that their number one issue has been swinging for those get off the field type players, and it just hasn't worked out for them. Those third down types. Buscaglia did mention that they could be trading away this number 30 overall pick if like a certain veteran presence does present itself, that only 3 point shy of a Super Bowl berth, Bean's highest impact on their championship chances could be in trading away number 30. I do wonder who he might be hinting at. But in this case, let's give them a starting corner. All right, pick 31. Could things go any better here for the Kansas City Chiefs?
Yeah, this is probably what they're thinking would be the best case scenario. We talked about it before, but Josh Simmons, it's hard to find left tackles this late in the draft. The only reason why he's down here is because he has a torn patella tendon, which is a disaster injury. But you can't you can't be picky if you're always in the Super Bowl. So this would move Kingsley to guard, kind of take where Tooney was at, and then you slide in Josh Simmons at left tackle. So they have multiple spots they have on the left side that they have to kind of take care of over the next couple months here. Maybe find one in free agency, maybe find one in the draft, and then you hope that Kingsley's ready. But if as long as the doctors kind of clear Josh Simmons, he's a day one player all day long. It's just the history of that injury is terrifying.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs get aggressive to make this move happen. Now, at the same time, they could get aggressive in free agency, and none of us are expecting it. Prior to sending away Joe Tooney, which they haven't definitely done yet, but everything has been agreed to. They were number one in spending across the league in their offensive line. Watching the Super Bowl, you certainly didn't feel that. And they just traded away Joe Tooney, who is arguably the most dependable of their offensive linemen at two spots. But you have Creed Humphrey at center, Trey Smith at the guard spot, and then Jawan Taylor is still glued to that contract at right tackle. It wouldn't stun me if they do bring in a veteran like Dan Moore at left tackle to not like totally rely on a move like this once they get to the NFL draft. But if they haven't, then yeah, you have to make this a priority. Like they made Xavier Worthy a priority last year and moved up for him.
Yeah, what is interesting, Connerly, the Oregon left tackle, he's going to be kind of in this range, and then also the Minnesota guy that you mentioned, Ursery, he's in this range. So there's more options at left tackle than there typically is at this point of the draft, but you have to kind of take some of their flaws with them, where it's Connerly not as strong to me. Ursery, like inside moves, he kind of is a little bit susceptible, not as like agile. Where Simmons, it's just all injury related. His tape is as good as it gets, really.
All right, Philadelphia Eagles. And I can hear the chat getting upset with us because we have Luther Burden all the way down here. We have Emeka Egbuka all the way down here. I don't think that they would go with a first-round wide receiver based on how their offensive line is set up. I also don't think Darius Alexander is an option here for Howard Roseman because he's about 25 or 26 years old. Howie wouldn't make that happen along the interior of their defense, even if they lose Milton Williams. But man, if they do lose Milton Williams and you already have Jalen Carter and his other Georgia teammates there, is Walter Nolan a possibility here?
Yeah, I think that he's a late round one player. Some people believe that he's like a mid round one player. He has some character stuff that was flagged by, I think it was Dane Brugler. So this would be like the classic scenario where player that should not be available falls for character stuff. And the Eagles are like, do you want to win Super Bowls and play hard or not? And usually they end up figuring it out. So to me, this would be like whether it's Abuka inside the slot, and now you have like an overwhelming level of wide receiver talent, or
Riches.
you have the defensive tackle. And I think that Walter Nolan offers way more pass rushing juice than this next tier. I like Tyreek Williams as a run stuffer.
TJ Sanders.
He's like probably to me one tier below Walter Nolan, but these guys are kind of the range that we're talking about if they are going to go in the trenches.
Yeah. Okay. Let's give them Walter Nolan and make that our first round. But I think there's a whole bunch of different options. I mean, Nick Scorton's still on the board as well. They could even try to take one of these tackles, start him off at guard if Mekhi Becton leaves, and then move him out to right tackle for when Lane Johnson ultimately retires, and kind of have that contingency plan, which is easily something that Howie Roseman can do. But after extending Saquon Barkley, after re-signing their all-pro linebacker, why not just continue? Because you're going to lose one of these pieces, and we'll go with Walter Nolan.
Yeah, there's no way they can re-sign Milton Williams. So this would be another shot at it.
All right, there's the first round. Just 2 quarterbacks here. If you were to say today, as we move on for the next few weeks, the likelihood of just 2 quarterbacks go in the first round.
Oh man, I can totally see Dart going round 1. It really just depends on, to me, like the Saints, the Steelers, the Raiders. How confident are they in the guys that they do have? I will say this. I do think that next tier of quarterbacks, I don't think they're like making it to the 3rd round. Like, to me, like there's not.
So you're saying the round 2 quarterback is back?
I think so. And like a lot of times those guys can also go round 1. I think that's like one narrative.
Well, yeah. I mean, even a week ahead of last year's draft, it was tough to know that, yeah, Michael Penix is definitely going in round 1. Bo Nix is definitely going in round 1. Right. There was some certain indecision there, even from this show. And it was very obvious that there were firm evaluations and certainties at that position. And so far, those have easily paid off. We liked a lot of what Bo Nix brought to the table when other people didn't. And then Sean Payton loved him more than anyone.
Yeah, to me, it would be Dart would be the most likely. And if you just look at it, like forget the Lane Kiffin offense, his production and efficiency against that level of competition, and he has all the experience that people are going for. He meets the size thresholds. He was also, of all the top quarterbacks, he scrambled the most in terms of yards per drop back on the scrambles. So if you're just looking at it like analytically, he's a round 1 player. I think that his tape is good enough. I haven't seen that kind of picked up by everyone, but to me, he's like not that dissimilar to the Bo Nix profile. So I have him as a first round grade. We'll see if people kind of catch up to that, but I'm certainly not ruling it out. And I'm also not ruling out that Shedeur Sanders kind of falls to the range that we're talking about here.
Chat, commenters, let us know your favorite prospect to team fit here. Mine is easily Colson Loveland to the Houston Texans. Could see that with the LA Rams at the exact same time. Just a match made in heaven. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I would love the Colson Loveland one as well. Genty to the Raiders would obviously get the channel all fired up as well. And then the Cowboys, Ted McMillan. I mean, we found the right landing spots. Matthew Golden to the Rams. Like for fantasy, like we're just like, all right, we're changing our fantasy rankings after round 1. We can have a lot of fun if this is kind of how it plays out.
That is for sure. And, you know, we've heard Ashton Genty's name to the Las Vegas Raiders. We've heard it to the Chicago Bears. I would even throw in maybe an under the radar move to the New Orleans Saints, but we have a long way to go, way to go with that. All right. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't. If you made it this far, you're an absolute sicko, and we love you for it. Tomorrow on the channel, and maybe as you're watching it right now, the Ringer Fantasy Football crew / NFL Draft crew is on the channel. Go and watch that video right after this one. We'll talk to you on the next one. See ya.